What's up, peeps? Nick Nino's Corner Battle, man. Today, episode 104, we're going to talk about the Texas versus Oklahoma State game. This is the Horns Corner section of the Nino's Corner podcast, man. But first off, guys, if you like what you're listening to, go give me a 5-star review, 5-star comment, on every streaming platform that you can get. It's also going to be on YouTube. You guys know how to do it, so I'm videoing it right now. Now, let's get into this game, guys. Texas versus Oklahoma State. What a game. Like I told you guys through my write-up on the Nino's Corner Sports website. Man, every time I watch a Texas football game, I feel like I lost 6 months off my life, if not a year. And this game was no different. This is the third overtime game that Texas has had this season. This is the second one that they won. They lost a 4 overtime game to our rival, OU. But let's get to this Oklahoma State game. Oklahoma State's number 6 team in the country. We go into Oklahoma State. We end up winning the game. What a game. Go into overtime. An amazing game. Guys, the offense for Texas was not good this game. What held this team up today or on Saturday was the defensive side of the ball, mainly Joseph Asai. That kid's going to be playing on Sundays. It's just kind of funny how in the past seasons, Joseph Asai was actually playing like an outside linebacker position. He is definitely a defensive end, tweener, outside linebacker, but in a 4-3, he is a defensive end. And Chris Ash, new defensive coordinator for Texas, has allowed Joseph Asai to be that guy to come off the edge and to raise havoc. Thank you, Chris Ash, for that. The guy had one of the games he had such an imposing game this weekend that it was kind of reminiscent of what Ndamukong Suh was doing in the Big 12. I'm not saying he's Ndamukong Suh because he's not, but that game, that was kind of what Suh was doing for the whole season. But this kid did it for a game, sorry, I said, but man, what a freaking game it was. Texas's offense, man, they got to get off to better starts. They haven't gotten off into good starts at all. Sam played a very pedestrian game for 3 quarters, actually 3.5 quarters. He gets things going on in the fourth quarter. Texas ends up, getting that touchdown to go ahead by 3 points. And Oklahoma State comes down. They march back. They do what they do. They end up getting a field goal to tie the game to the overtime. Sam does his thing in overtime, gets a touchdown, even on a 4th down play. Ends up does a hell of a job. Well, the 4th down play was at the end of regulation, but ends up doing his thing, gets a touchdown, gets a 2-point conversion going into overtime to actually send it. I mean, it was just a hell of a game. Hell of a game. I know I'm getting all my facts mixed up, but that was just how crazy this game was. Oklahoma State, what separated the game, Oklahoma State definitely had the better offensive stats. I think they, bested Texas by 285 total yards on offense. So when you look at that, they had over 500 yards of offense. I think Texas had 287 yards of offense. How do we end up winning the game? Well, it's because the Texas defense, man, did their thing. Like I said, led by Joseph Asai. They did a hell of a job, man. They forced 4 turnovers, they fumbles, strip sacks, interceptions. They did what they were supposed to do, and it was very refreshing to see a Texas defense that was lively, running towards the ball and just doing their thing. Big props to Chris Ash. Big props. So that's what actually kept the game. Spencer Ware, who's a quarterback for Oklahoma State, he had a pretty electrifying game. That kid has wheels, man. I remember when he played in high school in Denton, and I was wondering why Texas never offered him, because he had that kind of electricity, his speed, everything was really good for him. But Texas never offered him. He had offers, like I said, guys from Penn State, I think Ohio State offered him, but he stayed home, or not home. He stayed close to home, I guess, in Oklahoma State. So, maybe he can come home a little bit more often, his family can see him. But he stayed in the Big 12, and he's wrecking havoc right now. But this is the second year I think we've gotten him. But man, what a game by him. What a game by Wallace, the wide receiver. Golly, he's gonna be playing on Sundays too. Texas did not do a good job with him, but he's one of the best wide receivers in college football. What Texas did do good on defense, They got a ton of sacks. They got a ton of tackles for loss, but they stopped the run. And I think Texas's game plan was to say, hey, we'll let Tylan Wallace go do his thing. He can go off all he wants. I don't care. As long as we stop Chuba Hubbard, who has track athlete speed. He's from Canada. He can run with the best of them. He's amazing with the ball in his hands, ball after the catch. He's great. He fumbles quite often as of last year and the year previous, but he didn't fumble this game, but we bottled him up. He couldn't get going. Way to go, Texas defense, for not allowing Chuba Hubbard to do what he does to most guys, and that's get lots of yards on a chunk play. His longest play of the game, I think, was 9 yards. In his previous game, it's like 20 yards, 29 yards, 30 yards here, 27 yards there. His longest play of the game was 9 yards. Texas bottled him up. He had 22 carries, 25 carries for 72 yards, something like that. So averaging like roughly 2.9 yards a carry. Just for, to limit an All-American to 2.9 yards a carry is freaking amazing. So let's dig it, guys, into the NCN, which is the NinosCorner number, right? So with NinosCorner number, the bigger the number, the better the score is, right? So Texas is on the offensive side of the ball. The NCN offense is a 40. That's the average NCN offense, right? Texas had an abysmal NCN offense. I think it was, what was it, 31.8 points, 31.9. Oklahoma State, due to the turnovers, 28.9. So they did best them out, but both teams were below average when it comes to the NCN scale for NCAA average scores of 40 points. On the defensive side of the ball, Texas did their thing. Texas had a 68.9 NCN defense. Oklahoma State's was in the 40s, was it 40? No, 38.6. The average for an NCAA defense is 45 points. So Texas bested that mainly due to the turnovers and the sacks. But they had one great game on the defense side of the ball, like I said, led by Joseph Asai, who will be playing on Sundays next year. It would be hard pressed to see him come back and be in a Texas uniform, next year. He's balling out, with the Utah game last year in the bowl game at the Alamo Bowl. And this whole season, you're seeing what he can do with his hand in the ground. Mac Brown said something about a guy named Sergio Kendall, who we all remember was a beast here in the 40 acres. He said, you don't make your thoroughbreds run backwards. Sergio Kendall could run. He could rush the passer. He was speedy. I'm sorry, it wasn't Mac Brown. I think it was his high school coach. But with his hand in the ground, his head moving forward, Sergio Kendall could get the quarterback. And that's what you do with a guy of that talent. That's what you do with a Joseph Asai. You let him put his hand in that ground and you let him go get the quarterback. And how did he cap this off, guys? He capped this off amazingly with the game winning sack in overtime on Spencer Ware. Way to go, team. Way to go. Now, guys, we're going to go to a small commercial break from one of our sponsors, good friend of mine, Alexander Stevens. He has a blog called What Is He Thinking? I couldn't think of his name. Sorry, Alexander. What Is He Thinking is with the IZ. I'm going to go to a small commercial break. We're going to let him talk about it, and we'll be right back on the flip side. All right, guys, and we're back. So now we are going to talk about the state of Texas football. All right, guys, let's just be honest. Texas lost, three top, 2 5-star recruits. I think one was a high 4-star recruit. One from the 21 class and Billy Bowman. Huge loss, very huge loss. I think he's probably one of the most versatile athletes we've seen come out this state in a long time. He can play offense, he can play defense. He's freaking amazing. So we lost him. He decommitted. Looks like he's going to probably go to Oklahoma. We lost Ewers, who is the #1 quarterback in the country for the 2022 class, 5-star guy. One of the most highly ranked, quarterbacks that we, probably would have gotten on campus if he would have came here. We lost Jalen Milroe about a month and a half ago. He's going to Alabama now. He's from the 2021 class. We lost a wide receiver from the 2022 class also. And where does the Texas, brand go from here? We're losing recruits left and right. We gotta be able to shore up getting the recruits. We gotta be able to recruit better. How does it happen? Winning more games. We gotta win more games. We gotta win more games like we did this past weekend. We gotta win the rest of the season. We gotta go 8-2, guys. We have to. If we don't, I fear Tom Herman's going to probably lose his job if he doesn't win out, or get really close. If it's 7-3, maybe he keeps his job. It looks like some of the brass is a little bit fed up with the way that this program is going. I'm a Texas fan. I never want to see Texas lose, so I'm never going to root for Texas to lose. I want Herman to win the rest of his games. If it's up to me, I would have Herman win the rest of his games. I would have Herman win national championships next year and the year on and everything, if it was up to me. But it's not. But Texas has to figure out a way how to get things rolling, how to get things going. You got to build momentum. You got to be able to say, hey, when my best player on the offensive side of the ball, which is Sam Ehlinger, when he is not playing his best, how do we win the game? And Texas proved that they could do that in this past game when their best player on offense wasn't able to perform at the heights and the levels that we anticipate him performing at. Another facet of the game has to pick up. And that's what happened on Saturday. The defensive side of the ball picked up. Joseph Asai in that unit did some great things. Great flashes from Overshawn, great flashes from Mitchell. I mean, not just flashes, great play. Great play from that defensive line. They were all over the place. They bottlenecked Chuba Hubbard. The third facet of the game, special teams. Man, I said in a previous write-up, I think the first week of the season when Texas played UTEP, Deshaun Jameson is going to win a game for Texas on the special team side of the ball. And boy, did he do it. He didn't win this game, but that was a game breaker with that not the punt return, but the kickoff return. He had a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Texas needed it, especially at that moment. Oklahoma State had just came off a score, kicked the ball off. Jameson fumbles the ball a little bit at the goal line, picks it up, runs for a touchdown. This kid is amazing. He's electrifying. We need him to play like that all the time, and he does. I love the baby shark. I love the shark. I love seeing him do his thing when he's on special teams. He made one of the most underrated plays we're going to talk about, or we're not going to talk about, is Spencer Ware threw a jump ball up for Tylan Wallace. Shark is with him one-on-one. I think he had coverage over the top. If I'm not mistaken, I think Caden Stearns was actually over the top. One of the few plays where there was coverage over the top on Wallace. And he turns his head, meaning Jameson turns his head. He's step for step with Wallace. Wallace high points the ball. Jameson turns around, goes up for the ball also. As he's slipping, gets his hands on the ball. Wallace does not get the completion. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that was on a third down. And it was so helpful and so encouraging to see Jameson do his thing on that defensive play. And he had a great defensive stop there, catapulted this team to do greater things on that drive and later on in the game. One of the most underrated plays. But what does Texas have to do, guys? They have to be consistent. They must be consistent. The next game is going to get, be against West Virginia. Texas has to come out and win this game. They got to put their foot on their throat. Mike Yurchik, I know he has some decisions to make. The whole running back rotation. It looks like Bijan is the most comfortable guy in the backfield right now, him and Ingram. It looks like Rashawn, I think he has a shoulder injury or something of that nature, so he hasn't been getting the carries. But Bijan looked very comfortable, especially for a true freshman. Looked very comfortable. Who else looked very good? Jake Smith. Kudos to Jake Smith for, just staying healthy for this game and coming up and producing big time. Another guy who produced big time, might not have been through the whole game. He had 7 targets, only 1 reception, but that 1 reception is for a touchdown, and that was Josh Moore. Kudos to Josh Moore. Like I said before, I don't know who our number 1 receiver is. I think Josh Moore is our number 1 receiver, but, number 1 receivers, when it's time to go get it, they go get it. And he went up and got it in that fourth quarter of that game. So, on that note, guys, we are going to be out of here, man. I appreciate you guys for listening to everything. Listening to the podcast, episode 104, man, Texas versus Oklahoma State. We needed this win. We got the win. We're 4-2. There's no undefeated teams in the Big 12. There is a small line that we can end up playing for the Big 12 championship and win this thing, man. So kudos to everybody, man. Let's do this, man. Next week, West Virginia will be online again. Episode 105 is coming on Tuesday. Listen to it. We're going to do an analysis with a great friend of mine, a brother of mine, Langston Collins Wilkins, PhD. He's based out of the Seattle area. His PhD in what's it, ethnomusicology. So basically, hip hop, and he studies hip hop primarily in the Houston area. But we're going to dissect an album, for guys, for y'all who aren't hip hop fans. The guy named Benny the Butcher. We had a great 45-minute combo. It's gonna air on Tuesday. But listen to that after you listen to this episode 104, man. And kudos to all you guys for tuning in. Love you guys, man. You guys know how I end this thing on every episode. Do you? Don't be afraid to fail. Outgrow your environment. Understand your brilliance, man. NinosCorner, I'm out. Salute to you guys.